Hello, and welcome to Zap the Gender Pay Gap, the podcast series where we expose the elephant in the room. The elephant's name, the gender pay gap. I am coming to you from Memphis, Tennessee, located on the banks of the mighty Mississippi River. Nestled in the southwest corner of the state, Memphis is home to the blues, barbecue, and so much more. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker.
Thank you so very much for joining me for this episode of Zap the Gender Pay Gap. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker. I have a goal to increase subscribers to my podcast. Will you help me out? I'd be ever so grateful. Just click like and subscribe. That way you'll never miss an episode. Look for me on Apple, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. Did you know that August 1st is National Girlfriend Day? In my quest to find out how National Girlfriend Day all got started, I searched and searched, but didn't find a definitive answer. But I did find this. National Girlfriend Day is not only about celebrating your gal pal, it's also about women supporting women. I found a story on National Today about a friendship between what some would say were two unlikely women, Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe. Ella Fitzgerald was an American jazz singer with 13 Grammy Awards to her credit. Also known as Lady Ella and the Queen of Jazz, Ella Fitzgerald was African American, and Marilyn Monroe was an iconic American actress, model, and singer. All you have to do is mention her name. One of National Today's favorite stories of female friendship is between these two women and involves Fitzgerald attributing her big break to Monroe. Lady Ella tried to book a gig at the Mocambo in Hollywood in 1955, but the manager turned her away. But check this out. Lady Ella's gal pal Monroe called the manager and said that she would sit front row every night if Fitzgerald got the job, which would pull in the press and crowds that the manager craved. Fitzgerald would say later, after that, I never had to play a small jazz club again. Talk about a big break. Can you imagine what that did for Lady Ella's career? Not to have to play a small jazz club again? Marilyn Monroe had a hand in putting her on the map. It was up from there. I am very fortunate to have some great female friends. One of my closest friends to this day is a friend from childhood. Tina and I grew up together in a small town in Florida, graduated from high school, moved away to different states, and we're still close friends to this very day. My parents even adopted her as their baby girl. But I thought I was supposed to be the baby. Yes, they said, but she's the baby girl. I guess that's what friends are for, huh? But I don't mind. She brought much joy to my parents and our family, and I am so blessed I get to call her friend. When I launched this podcast, she was one of the first to celebrate me and offer her support. When I launched my podcast, she was the first to celebrate my accomplishment. And she offered her support, but she didn't stop there. After receiving my first email, she replied, "Thank you, Gwen. This is good information and serious food to consume. Is it okay to share?" Absolutely, by all means. And a great big thank you, I replied. I have so many friends, personal and professional friends, who have offered to do the same. And for them, I am very grateful. I created this podcast, Zap the Gender Pay Gap, to expose the elephant in the room, to make it visible, and to uncover it so the whole world can see it for what it truly is. I refer to it as the elephant in the room because some people aren't aware that it exists, and some who know that it exists typically don't talk about it. So, this elephant in the room, the gender pay gap, it continues to eat up to 18% of a woman's payday every day. This elephant is an eating machine. The gender pay gap affects managers and non managers alike, those with direct reports as well as those who don't. A lesser known fact is that female managers earn 90% on average what male managers earn. That means there's a gap of 10%. You may be thinking, girlfriend, say it ain't so. Now, you know it's not proper grammar, but I do get your meaning. Yes, it is so. I started my career in cost accounting and earned my designation as a certified public accountant during my days in internal audit. And I was promoted to manager. And I was responsible for overseeing audits for a segment of our business. And so as I conducted research on the pay gap, it was only natural that I start with titles of positions I had held, which were accountants, auditors, and financial manager. The earnings ratio for these professions were not 82%, they were lower. For accountants and auditors, the ratio was 78%. Well, this couldn't be. So I took a look at financial managers. Surely, financial managers, the ratio, it would be much better, right? No, it wasn't. For financial managers, it was much worse. It was 66.1%. You do the math calculating the gap. Yes, the gap is almost 34%. About this elephant being an eating machine, it's greedy. No wonder they're huge animals. Now, after collecting myself, I just had to take a look at some numbers for other female managers. Now, I already mentioned that I almost fell out of my chair when I saw the earnings ratio for financial managers at 66%. But what about other managers? Now, there were some bright spots for female managers in human resources and in IT. The earnings ratio was a little bit better at 91% or more. But can you guess what the earnings ratio is for female chief executives? 75.6%. These numbers confirm that the gender wage gap affects women in the workplace from entry level all the way up to CEO. The bottom line is that women in the workplace, regardless of profession, both managers and non managers alike, consistently earn less than their male counterparts. Did I hear you say, girlfriend, say it ain't so? Yes, unfortunately, it is so. But that does not have to be the ending to your story. And this does not have to remain the case. It is possible to fight against this trend and zap the gender pay gap. Now, because gal pals are there for each other and have a history of fighting against the tide, I have a question to ask. Can I be your gal pal? I would love to show you how to fight against this tide because together I believe that we can achieve great things and we can achieve great things together. Now, in honor of National Girlfriend Day, please know that I so appreciate you. I really do. I appreciate you for listening to my podcast. I appreciate those of you who like my podcast. And I also appreciate you for subscribing to my podcast. Your support puts wind beneath my wings. Now, if you have some takeaways from what you've heard today, please consider sharing it with some of your gal pals. I am so looking forward to sharing with you on next week's episode. As a female leader, I have gained a lot of knowledge about pay systems and how they work. I will share some of that knowledge with you, especially female leaders. Why especially female leaders? Because I are one. Now, the first time I heard someone say that, I smiled and then I laughed out loud. I hope you do too. It's National Girlfriend Day. Let's celebrate. Happy National Girlfriend Day, my friend. Thanks so much for joining me today. See you next Wednesday at noon Central Standard Time for the next episode of Zap the Gender Pay Gap. Until then, please be well.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Zap the Gender Pay Gap. Please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow me wherever you get your favorite podcast. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.